Hi everyone, welcome to the 8th edition of In the Fox's Den. Very happy to say that I have another music icon with me, someone you'll know very well. His name's Owen Paul. I've had the pleasure of knowing him for a few years now, and he's here to talk about the things that are happening to him now, and there's quite a lot. So, hello, Owen Paul.
Hello, Rick. How's things?
Yeah, it's great, mate. How's lockdown been for you?
Actually, really productive. I was quite fortunate when the lockdown thing sort of kicked in March, at the end of March. I'd already booked to come to record in Farnham in Surrey, so I just ended up being locked down there, which meant we had the recording studio at our beck and call. And obviously, because of lockdown, same as everyone else, losing lots of work, we stopped getting all our festivals and concerts all got cancelled for the year, possibly even worse into the middle of next year. But it meant that I could concentrate on the album that I'd started doing. And I've released a couple of tracks so far. And I've done way more recording and release stuff than I might have otherwise done, if you see what I mean.
So this is what's really been good, hasn't it, for singer-songwriters? Because singers who sing other people's songs, it's not easy for them to have been creative during this time. But for singer-songwriters such as yourself, it's been more than creative, hasn't it?
You're right, and also because of technology like we're using right now, a recording setup as such doesn't take the thousands of pounds that it used to. You can do it on an Apple Mac or a PC, and you can get your recording equipment pretty much in a box room. And a bit like David Gray did with his massive album, White Ladder, I think it's called. You can record the whole thing in your bedroom. But I mean, it's been incredible, really.
Didn't Paul Hardcastle do that years ago as well in his bedroom in Leytonstone?
Yes, the same with a lot of the Erasure stuff. Vince Clarke does most of it himself, and then they maybe polish it up at the studio later on. But the technology thing is revolutionised the business without a shadow of a doubt. And I can have an idea at 10 o'clock in the morning, start recording, have the meeting two veg of it going by midday. I can have the whole thing finished by the end of the night. Whereas that used to be days and days and days.
That's fantastic. You're gonna miss that when you get to gig again, aren't you? You're not gonna have time to do that.
To be honest, it's like, there's a 50-50 here because we're learning so much about the technology is that when we get back to doing the gigs and the festivals and things, we can take the stuff with us. We can take the laptops and the microphones and we can do it as we go, So it's been a massive boost, really.
So let's go back to the real early days. You grew up in Glasgow and you went to school, I believe, with Jim Kerr of Simple Minds.
Quite a lot of people have ended up being quite famous. Jim and Charlie Burchill from Simple Minds. My older brother, basically what happened was my brother Brian and Jim and Charlie in effect formed the Simple Minds as a school band when the punk explosion happened around 1977. And they used to come back from school and rehearse in our basement. After the Sex Pistols happened and the Damned, everyone was forming bands left, right and centre. They used to go and join football clubs or youth clubs. All of a sudden it was like anyone can be in a band. You didn't have to play, just make a pleasant noise or a racket and see what it took. And I used to sit at the top of the stairs in our house because they used to rehearse in the basement after school, right? And it sounds like we were posh, we had a basement. We weren't posh, believe me, we weren't. But anyway, at the end of school, I'd go back.
Still talking about Glasgow, right?
Yeah, this is Glasgow, 1977. There's no posh there. Anyway, they used to play 7-inch singles before they'd rehearse as some kind of motivational thing, So they played Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols, White Riot by the Clash, songs by the Damned. And I was sitting upstairs, having been used to hearing music by my older brother, things like Neil Young or Led Zeppelin or Yes. And then I had this incredible racket being the Anarchy, especially Anarchy in the UK. And I've, in effect, heard the Simple Minds form and build in our basement. And then because of their success, I remember, because we were still at school when they started to get really going, and I remember they ended up on the Old Grey Whistle test with their first single and their first album on Bob, with Whispering Bob Harris.
Yeah, I've worked with Bob, yeah.
You can imagine, right, to guys, working class people, Top of the Pops, say, or the whistle test was something that was in the box that you saw every Thursday or every Tuesday night, and you never dreamt for a second anyone you ever knew would be on there, never mind you could get there yourselves. And it's a bit like, sports stars, right? Basically what happened is Jim Kerr, Charlie Burchill, Brian, Derek Forbes, and Mick McNeil, who was playing keyboards, get on the whistle test. It was as if something happened at our school, because everyone, a bit like I say when Boris Becker won Wimbledon, I'm sure every German kid bought a tennis racket the next morning and suddenly thought, I can do this if he can. And with the Simple Minds thing at our school, that's exactly what we thought. We thought, hang on a second, these guys are still at school with us. We can do that. So all of a sudden, Texas, Altered Images, Lloyd Cole Commotions. I started bands that then ended up getting me to London and becoming a music person myself. There was bands popping up everywhere, and even to this day, I mean, even in more recent times, Fran Healy from Travis, our school, and so was some of his other bandmates, and it just kind of festered, and actors and poets and all sorts were just going, wow, we can be on TV, we can do this, and it freed everyone up to have a real go. And that's exactly what I did. So as I think you're going to get onto at some point, up until that point, I say I was like 14, 15, when the punk music thing happened and the Simple Minds were listening in our house. I was a football fanatic. And I'd been signed to Celtic as a 12-year-old when I got fortunate, and one of the scouts was driving past when I was playing for my school and just randomly came to watch the game on a Saturday morning. And a guy called Bobby Crilly, who was one of the main coaches, approached me after the game and said, could he speak to my father? And I got signed by Celtic as a 12-year-old. And I played with guys like Charlie Nicholas, Mark Reed, Tommy Burns, Roy Aitken, Paul McStay and Willie McStay, the McCluskey brothers. And I got to train with them on a daily basis. And I used to go straight from school, get the underground, then the number 64 bus to Parkhead. You get there, so the professionals were already working during the day, but I was still at school, right? Like many youth signings. So the coach used to say to us, okay, when you arrive, just get yourself changed and go into the running track and just keep running around, and we'll shout you over on a day, whenever each day we go past. But that's the start point to get you warmed up, right? So this is like an 800-meter track, right? Or sorry, 400-meter track. Sometimes they would leave me doing that for hours. Well, I was watching the other players. I was even watching, I remember Kenny Dalglish and the other guys doing all the fancy the triangles and the cones and all the stuff. And I'm like, come on, coach, shout me over, for God's sake, I'm dying here. So I got to play with those guys. And then football became, as I say, I mean, I was fanatical about it. And I trained, I think, maybe four days a week while I was still at school. And then the punk thing happened and the Simple Minds happened. And I suddenly went, this is for me. This music thing is for me. I never liked the physical training. I never liked the stuff that Charlie Nicholas went on to do, and he built up the muscle mass, and I could never have coped with that. I was, as you can see right now, I'm still quite frail, and as a teenager, I was even smaller and like that. But I didn't have the application to do all the training and the hard work. I loved playing. Yes, I loved playing for my country at schoolboy level and scoring the goals and getting all the stuff. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, weights, running, I was like, no. But whereas when I started doing bands, and this is true to this day, yes, I love the concerts. Yes, I love being on television. Yes, I love the, congratulations on your success and whatever. But I really love the graft and the boring stuff as well. So that was the difference between the two subjects. I really like making records. I could listen to a bass drum for days on end. I know it doesn't sound glamorous, right? But that's what record people do. And it's, I like the tiny little bit. I like the creating the song in the first place, or the writing of the song. And then I like getting into the nitty gritty of the record. And then by the time you hear it coming back on radio, you still go, oh no, I forgot that bit, or whatever. To this day, I hear Favourite Waste of Time and go, there's a bit on there, I shouldn't have done that. I still think that. And records are now, because of, again, like I discussed about the digital thing, you can change things up right up to the last second. Like we've got a release coming out today that I could change right now, seconds before it lands on iTunes. I could say, you know what, not happy with that snare drum, or I'm not happy with that vocal, I could flip it out and get it on iTunes and that, just like that. And I love that part of it. And as I say, I love the boring, mundane, technical stuff. Whereas at football level, I was just not made for the physical. I didn't have the application. I was never going to make it. I was always going to be found out.
So have you ever worked as a music producer? Because I know you've been a performer, but do you sounds like you enjoy the production side of it.
Very much so. I mean, basically what happens after the success of Favourite Waste of Time, like many other artists I'm sure you know and have spoken to, I had a falling out with my record company because they wanted 15 other versions of Favourite.
As you do, yeah.
They wanted 15 Favourite Waste of Times, and I was like, I'm out of punk, man. I'm not doing that. So I then kind of disappeared from the scene. But I ended up, as you say, because of my, what I'd learned technically, because never mind the fact that when Simple Minds became successful, I was at a lot of their recording sessions and learnt my trade just watching them and watching the producers. They worked with guys like Trevor Horn and Steve Lipson and those kind of guys. And I was like watching and listening and going, I must remember that if I ever get to make records. And then I did. And then when I fell out with the record company after Favourite Waste of Time and stuff got very difficult, production is where I went to, and I ended up making a massive album in Japan that was triple platinum in like a week, and on an album that actually I never thought was that good, but we made it in 3 weeks, right? And the band were a bit, but I cut it all. I mean, virtually, when you have to make an album in 3 weeks with guys that can't really play, that takes some doing. I was 24 hours a day cutting up the bits of tape to get the one bit the drummer got right, and then multiply that, and and this is before technology, so I just had big strips of tape on a table, cutting them with scissors and then sellotaping them together, and then we got a triple platinum award-winning album out of Japan. We were like, yeah,
which is tremendous. And I know how hard you work now, so I know that hasn't changed much. When I first came across you, when I first became aware of you, Owen, was actually when you were working with a friend of mine who's now moved to Australia, a guy called Russell Dreyer. And you were working for a company called London Entertains, which was owned by Joe Lewis, who obviously people know from ENIC and owning Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. So tell us a little bit about that, because I never actually got to meet you at that time. But Russell used to come back and talk about you all the time. This guy's going to be a big star.
That's nice. Nice to hear. And he wasn't wrong. He wasn't
wrong, was he? Here you are.
Yeah, still 14 years on, or whatever it is. Yeah, no, basically what happened was me and a friend of the son of Joe Lewis, which is Charles, I used to help with the technical side of playing music for the artists that were performed at London Entertainment. So if they had a Cockney night, I would organise the backing tracks of the Chaz and Dave style stuff, and then lip sync the singers and the dancers and whatever. And through that, I got to meet Charles and Russell at the time. And Charles went on to become my best friend, and we're still good friends today, thankfully. And that sort of took me into all different avenues of business and things. When Joe and Charles then moved on to buy other things, like they got involved with the Hard Rock Cafe and the other one, Planet Hollywood.
Yeah.
And even make movies and things like that. I got very much brought into that as in a kind of advisory role with Charles. So they'd show me the logos of things and say, what do you think about that? And why did you speak? I remember one time they were opening Hard Rock in Argentina, and they wanted contacts they wanted UB40 to come for the opening night, or James Brown or Sheryl Crow. And I always had, because of my connections, I had ways of getting to them. Whereas trying to get to the management company alone of such big artists used to be tricky. I'd know somebody in the camp that would get me to the manager, get me to the artist as well. So I became advisory to Charles at that level, and it took me all over the world, and did very well. This is even before they got into the football situation, and that's even funny in itself. I remember we were in the Bahamas, and Daniel Levy was there, and Joe Lewis and Charlie Lewis, and they had this company called ENIC that was just like on a shelf company, let's say. It wasn't ready to go, but it wasn't functioning as anything. And then just general conversation while we were having lunch or something was like, what can we invest in that's, that could go on to be a big thing, and what could we do with this? Because me and Charles were like little lads, football fanatics, we're like, why don't you buy football clubs? That'd be great. then we thought we could get a tracksuits on and be coaches and stuff, right? And Joe Lewis was like, I'll let you guys, go and think about that and give me a better idea what it means, right? So Daniel, especially, who's the sharp shooter in this, said, it might not be a bad idea because the Super League was coming. This is before the Champions League or anything, right? And at this point, they were saying there's a Super League coming, so there would be, the top teams of every European country would be in that Super League. And then Daniel obviously came up with the concept of, why don't we buy a part of every European country that we can get into that league? So they bought Vicenza in Italy, they bought Slavia Prague, they bought Glasgow Rangers first. That was the first move they made, because Daniel, again being smart, knew that Rangers qualified for Europe every year like that. So that was a smart move that then they bought into other clubs. But then a curveball arrived, and ENIC were told you can't have multiple ownerships, and they had to then, decide that they had to do it a different way. And then they sort of put it all together, got rid of their shareholding in Rangers and Slavia Prague and Vicenza, and AEK Athens was another one. And then they went all in with Spurs, and there you go. And that's where they are right now.
So it's down to you then, is it, that ENIC owns Spurs?
Me and Charles were just being flippant. We were like, hey, football team, there, we could go to all the games, yeah. And we thought we'd be, in the dressing room with the lads going, okay, here we go, back four's this. And you put this guy in the middle, and then we'll buy Cantona, and he can play at number 10. That's, me and Charles were just talking like that on that level. Daniel was a complete different thing altogether. As everyone knows, he's a genius at this stuff, and went,
I remember going round to Joe's house years ago with Russell, when this was before they were in the Bahamas, or he took himself off to the Bahamas, and they lived somewhere in northwest London. And my overriding memory is that it was just as people had started to get satellite dishes. Yeah. Joe had one outside his house which was probably about as big as Cape Canaveral. It's the most amazing thing. It covered up all the other houses that were by the side of it.
You're right. I remember it because they used to press a button to make it go.
That's right. Yeah, they did.
I think I watched Russian TV for a second. Hold on. Let's find out.
That's it. He could watch absolutely everything. This was before B Sky B and all of that. You just set up this massive grate, and he probably could have told the planes where to go. It was absolutely huge. But then I think that was the last that anyone saw of him, because he took himself off to Bahamas, and I don't think even Getty Images have got a picture of him for the last 20 years.
Very private chap, and
yeah,
I respect that. And he's done great things, and never mind just his investments in football and business and stuff. He does mountainous amounts of things with charity. I know that, for example, in one place in Argentina, he gives a hospital nearby, a cancer treatment hospital nearby, unbelievable amounts of funding on a yearly basis, and he does that all over the world. So he's done, loads of business deals yet, but his heart's in the right place too, and gives back plenty.
Well, let's come back to you, because this is about you. It's not about Joe Lewis. I'm sure I couldn't get hold of him to interview him anyway. But what people know you most for, obviously, is My Favourite Waste of Time, and it's one of those songs where if you mention it to people, they can't get that out of their head for the next 2 weeks. It really is like a catchy song that everybody knows, everybody still sings, and I also remember that video of you on the beach, which I'm sure we'll get to put on our playlist with this, so that people can watch that as well, because I think it's on YouTube.
Yeah, no, clearly it was a song that changed my life, and it was yet another, a bit like when I get spotted by a football scout. It was a random event. I had no plans to, make the record at all. I hadn't even heard that song. Basically, what happened was I'd already had one single out, a song called "Pleased to Meet You," which did quite well for me actually as a debutant, and it was well received by the music press, and I got lots of airplay, but it didn't turn into sales. I then had a recording session booked for my second track, and the night before that session, imagine it's a Tuesday morning, we're going to go to Camden Town to start the new record. And I already decided it was going to be one of my songs, and that's what we're going to do. But the night before, I just could not sleep. I was like thinking about it, worrying about it. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to have to try and knock myself out. So I was looking through old VHS tapes. Remember them? And I was like, okay. And then I saw this one that said Bette Midler in concert. I thought, let's try that. So I put the Bette Midler tape in, sat there 10 minutes. It was one of her massive extravaganzas where she was dressed like, what it was called, not a dolphin, and they said dolphin or something. Mermaid is the word I'm looking for. Mermaid.
Yeah. She was like an early Lady Gaga, wasn't she?
By far and away bigger and better too. Anyway, in the middle of that TV show, she did a musical medley, so it was a snippet of about 4 or 5 songs, and some of which I knew and some of which I didn't. And then halfway through the medley, she went, you're my favorite waste of time. And that is all she did, right? I was like, wow. I'm on my own, right? I'm like, what's that? So I put the tape back. I played it again. I was like, I'm not joking, Rick. About 8 hours later, I was still playing that bit.
Really?
Now 6 a.m. or something crazy. And I kept playing it, right? So I spoke to my manager before I went to the studio. My manager, a guy called Peter Powell from Radio 1, I'm sure you know. And Peter, I said to Peter, I just had this really tiny little bit of a song, and it goes, you're my favorite. I said, can anyone find out what the whole song is, who it is, who wrote it, whatever? So within a couple of hours, they got a cassette sent to me at the recording studio of a version of it by the writer, a guy called Marshall Crenshaw, a Canadian. I loved it. And in the studio, I said to the guys in the band, you know, see what we'd rehearsed? We were going to do this other song. We're going to do something else entirely. So I kept playing the cassette over and over again. I then put in a new verse, added different words, put in a middle-eight section, you know, about, yeah, cause you're mine, you must be out of my mind, yeah. That was not in the original record, that's one of mine. Put that in, put this bit in, then rehearsed it with the guys, played it. Within 24 hours, it was done. And we knew, we were like, even like now when I'm talking about it, I don't know if you can see the goosebumps. We knew, everyone in the room was like, oh, this is going to be a worldwide smash. But I felt slightly differently. I thought that, I agreed with that. The engineer said the same, and everyone that came in from the tea room just to listen to her in the studio next door were like, oh, smash hit. I was now scared to play it to my boss, a guy called Muff Wormwood at Sony, because I suddenly went, it's too poppy for me. It's way too poppy. They're going to make me into a pin-up guy, and I'm going to be in smash hits and Top of the Pops, and I'm a rock guy, and I'm not going to fit, and it's not going to work, and I can't do my own stuff, and that's exactly what happened. I was right. They were, you know, we ended up having to play it to our bosses at Sony CBS. They loved it. They threw the kitchen sink in promotion. Anything goes, as opposed to before when I was begging them for 20 pence to get me in a radio station. Now they were throwing the kitchen sink at it, and it was all moving very well and whatever. But all the while, I was haunted by the fear that I'd made a shiny, summery, poppy thing when I was much more a Bruce Springsteen, Clash, U2 type act. Up until that point, they signed me as a rock act. They'd seen me, and they knew I was rock guy, you know. But made us massive, so it was a kind of. I felt, oh no, I've done something really stupid. But you know, I got over myself through the years thereafter and realised, you know, I'm very, very, and I always was very, very proud of it. It's a brilliant, brilliant record. And I wouldn't be talking to you now if it wasn't for it.
No, I mean, you know, like I said, everybody sings it, hums it, it stays in your mind. You were absolutely right that day. I mean, it was something that has become iconic.
Very much so. It's just like it did, even that little bit by Bette Midler that started it all off for me. Well, that moment and that little bit, like you say, it infests you. It's like,
Does she know that? Have you ever had a chance to talk to Bette Midler about it?
I'll tell you what, Marshall Crenshaw knows all about it. And, yeah, I remember Marshall Crenshaw came to the UK and did a gig at the Astoria in Charing Cross Road, and he got reviewed in the Melody Maker magazine. And a friend of mine, Parry, who you know, magazine, said, "I'm not sure you want to read this." This was some years later after the song had been a hit, and I'd done Top of the Pops and tours and all that. And I read the piece, and it was like Marshall Crenshaw in concert. The funniest bit of the night is when he sang My Favourite Waste of Time and said, "Thanks to Owen Paul for $3.5 million in the last year."
That's superb. I hope you got some of that. So, so two things then happened. Obviously, your life must have changed an awful lot after having that hit record. But did you also feel at the same time that you had gone into this cubbyhole of a genre of music that you really didn't want to be associated with at the time? I know you love it now, but
no, it became, it's a cliche, I know, but it's a cliche because it's true. It became a double-edged sword for me. And it's not that I don't like pop. I mean, I love pop and I love classical and I love soul music. And I've never understood why artists can't drift between the two. But in the business, especially in the 80s, you were either one or the other. I remember Midge said to me, one of your problems on is everything's all too bitty. He said, when we do an Ultravox record, the whole album sounds like an Ultravox record. He said, you're drifting off into country there and you're drifting off. And he said, for the public or marketing, that's a difficult thing. You've got to get your brand. And I was like, well, I don't want to be a brand. So just, I thought if you're David Bowie, who I was a fanatic of, he makes electronic records, then he makes ballady records, and sometimes he makes records with no singing on it. And that's what I thought making music was all about. So obviously, I did become a square peg in a round hole. Another cliche, I know, I'm full of them. But I didn't fit.
A lot of them on this show. Don't worry about it.
But you're right, I just didn't fit, and it became a real annoyance to me because in one little swoop, I'd had my biggest hit that's still massive today, but I knew I was in trouble, and it was virtually I mean, I'm wrong because I came back 30 years later, but I thought my music career's over. I'm going to have to find other ways of doing things, and like I said, I worked behind the scenes, and
well, we know for a fact that your music career isn't over, and we'll come to that in a minute. But in between, I think the next time that a lot of people saw you on TV was in the Osbornes. So do you want to talk about what happened with that? Because that's become a very famous clip that is shown over and over again.
And like every other event that I've described here, it's another random moment. So it's 2000, in between 2000 and 2001, I go to Charles Lewis's house that we spoke about before in Los Angeles, and I'm bringing the mixes of a new record that we both have been working on, and I wanted to play it to him, and he said, well, why don't you stay? It's Christmas time, we'll stay over New Year, bring your family over, and then you can go back to London and finish the record, right? Fine. That's why I was there. It ended up getting reported in The Sun and the BBC that it was my house and Mr. One Hit Wonder lives in Beverly Hills. So it's like,
nothing wrong with that.
Anyway, so what happened, how this is how it came about. So we did what we said. We played the tracks daily to talk about the mixes and the things, whatever. And then it got to New Year time, like Christmas, New Year. In the meantime, we'd noticed that this house was getting built next door across the wall. And it had really weird ornamentation on it, like Gothic figures on the outside, and thought, that's a bit strange. But we never thought anything of it. Obviously, it turns out to be Ozzy and Sharon, but we didn't know that at the time. So here we go. I'm Scottish. I'm a Celt. What do we do at New Year and Christmas time? Out come the guitars, sing-song time, in the garden, all night, every night. Woo-hoo! So that's exactly what we were doing. And we were singing all the classics, like, I got sunshine on a cloudy day. And then everyone in the house would all join in. Charles would sing a bit, and Joe Lewis would even sing a bit. And we were singing all the classics. I remember Daniel Levy singing Daniel with me. That was a night.
I really would have loved to have seen on TV.
That really happened. I virtually didn't know that he knew there was. I knew the chords, and we got away with it. Anyway, that's what we were doing in their garden. And then all of a sudden, these things were flying across over the wall. And then bits of meat and people shouting. Right? And then they came, rang the door thing, pressed the buzzer. Next minute, the police were there. The police arrived at us, saying, you got to cut the noise down, you know, you're upsetting the neighbours. And we're like, well, in Beverly Hills, the garden's here and then their garden is half a mile away. I don't know how we could be upsetting them, but that was the claim, right? So that was it. Nothing more, nothing less. And we all forgot about it and just got on with our lives. And then I go back to London. Charles phones me and goes, you're never going to guess. We just had an email thing saying, would we sign a documentation to let MTV show the footage that they filmed? And we're like, footage of what? On the document it says that they were making a brand new show called The Osbournes for MTV. Yeah. We wanted to use our clips. We were like, oh, no. So we said, okay, can we see the clips? Because we didn't want to look at a bad light, right? Because there was a lot of swearing and fighting going on. Right?
Yeah.
So they refused to show us the clips. So we refused to sign the documents and then thought nothing of it. We thought, well, they're not going to use it. So what they decided to do, because obviously it's a legal allowance, is that they showed the clips in episode 3 of the first series, which was on MTV and Channel 4. And we were episode 3, right? And it was called Nasty Neighbours and something cliched rubbish, right? And there we were, but our faces were all blurred out. And there's Sharon and Ozzy throwing bits of meat and
chicken, wasn't it?
The biggest episode MTV have had of anything ever.
It's the most shown clip from that show. So just to clarify, the people the other side of the fence were you, yes, Joe Lewis, Charlie Lewis, and Daniel Levy.
I think Vivian was there as well.
Okay, that's bizarre. I think that's a real coup for In the Fox's Den as well. So that's great. So moving on from that, obviously you've been doing a lot of writing, and some time ago you came to me with a song called Amazing, which was amazing, and I thought that was really going to be a hit as well, because you do write some very, very catchy songs. So what's happened with that song? Because I want to give that a bit of a boost in this, because that's a great song.
Thank you. No, I thought it was a song that would have turned the corner for me and got me back into making records more or whatever. And it did to a certain degree, but again, a bit unusual for me. It became a dance hit. A guy called Stonebridge did a remix of it, and it ended up in the UK charts in Music Week. It was in the top 10 for 3 or 4 weeks. But the actual original rock recording of it didn't do anything. We were even thinking of putting it on the new record, doing a new version of it. But yeah, it did very well for me and got me a lot of coverage and a lot of, stuff that doesn't pay, like streaming and things, But no, it just kind of fizzled out. It was a great record, and we play it live. It always goes down very, very well, because it's one of those tracks, as actually you've heard it. It's very instant. And you can go, I remember I did a festival, big open door thing in Blackpool, right along the promenade, 10,000 people. So I sang, favourite waste of time, of course. I did The Living Years, because I was a member of Mike and the Mechanics for a while. I did Don't You Forget About Me. But in the middle of it all, I put a track they'd never heard. And there's 10,000 people there who are coming for an 80s festival. They've got me, Paul Young, Bananarama, Lamal, blah, blah. And I stuck Amazing in the middle. And I said, this is a brand new song. I'm going to give it a go. Hope you don't mind, kind of thing. By the second chorus, I would go, this is, and put my mic towards them, and they all shouted back at me, amazing!
I thought that was going to be even bigger than Favourite Waste of Time, honestly, because it is incredibly catchy, and it's one of those tunes, I think, that should have been considered for a TV show. It really is, and what we'll do is we'll push that with this.
That would be nice. I think in the sense that if an audience of 10,000 people can sing it back to you after one chorus, you're onto something.
Yeah, exactly. While we're on the subject of festivals, sir, we were with you in Southend last year, and I have to tell everybody that's watching that you were the ultimate professional that day, because you fell off the stage while you were singing. You fractured your ribs, broke your ribs, got back on the stage, nobody knew, and you carried on singing and bouncing around. But then we saw you afterwards and you were in absolute agony, and we didn't get to talk to you much because you were being rushed off in an ambulance. So it's great to see that you're a lot better now, because that's only a year ago. But what was happening? What actually happened that day?
I mean, it was not my finest moment. And even like the Osbornes, obviously, you're doing festivals now, everyone's got a camera or more, and it was caught in film from multi angles and made them, you can get it on YouTube, guys, if you want to go and look at me falling 8
we'll
feet.
Put it in the playlists, yeah.
Basically, it's very, very simple. I was playing at sort of 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it was, there's many 80s artists coming on after me and before. So I'm on third. I'm doing my set. I think Curiosity Killed the Cat had been on before me, and then so it got to like 4 o'clock, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's key to the event, right? Because it became a little bit twilighty, right?
Yes.
So I knew exactly where I was because I've done thousands and thousands of concerts, and I knew monitors here, and don't go there because that's an 8-foot drop, and there's metal girders down there. Don't go near it, right? I knew all that in advance because I've done it loads of times. This twilight moment, the concert promoter decided to put all the lights on, the stage lighting. So I'm a bit too far forward. The stage lighting's beaming up at my face. So now I can't see nothing, but I see what I think is the next bit of the stage, which turns out to be a bass bin that's about half a yard away. And I think it's the same part of the stage. So I go, in real time with a microphone in my hand.
We didn't have a clue what was going on. All we knew is that you kept singing perfectly, got back on stage as if nothing had happened. And so everybody in the audience was still singing along with all your songs. They thought, oh, thank God he's all right. And just carried on as if nothing had happened at all.
I'll tell you what happened in my head, right?
Yeah.
I go kaboom, like with no hands to stop the fall. So catch it full in the chin, in the face, crack the ribs, spin my wrist, la la la. And I'm in like a state of shock. But I keep going so I can still hear the music. I'm going, yeah, whatever. Da, da, da. Some guy grabs me and sort of gets me roughly back to around the staging because I had no idea where the stage was then. Now I'm on the ground in front of thousands of people and I don't know where the stage is. So he grabs me and I'm still singing the song. And then I go around the back, get up, right? I see Lynn, my back vocalist and the boss of everything, who does all the work and the diaries and the websites. She's to my right, still going, she's looking at me, and I'm like, and I carry on, and then I do the next 20 minutes, or 25, whatever it was in total. But when I turn to the right, I see paramedic guys with the yellow suits. And Lynn goes, they're for you. And I'm like, huh? So I go over, I'm still in shock. So I have no recollection of the 30 minutes that went on before that. Because I had to ask Lynn how the gig went. I said to Lynn,
nobody knew what had happened. We spoke to Pat Sharp afterwards, and Pat was hosting the event, and he had no idea that you'd gone off in an ambulance. Seriously, he was hosting the event, and he didn't know what was happening.
What was brilliant is that the camera crew were running a live feed to the side of the stage, which the ambulance crew were watching and saw me go down. That's why they were ready. But as I say, the half hour prior, I had no idea how it went after the fall. I then get taken in the ambulance. They're like, what's going on here? And they're like, just don't move. Lie down, don't move. And now I suddenly go, I feel like massive pressure up here.
I remember seeing you afterwards.
I'm overheating. They're like, whoa. So we're going to have to go to the hospital right now. I think I walked out of the ambulance to get something out of the car, and I saw you and the guys, and I was like,
Oh, no, yeah, no, you were in a really, really bad way, but you must have been on the stage as well. But as a true professional,
It's obviously like adrenaline, your brain takes over, you go into like, you know, safety mode. I definitely didn't go anywhere near the front of the stage during the next 20 minutes. And I just went into protection, get the job done, because I've always been that way. The job must get done. Blah, blah, blah. And I don't remember it at all.
well,
But then,
like I say, you were the ultimate professional. Everybody enjoyed your performance, and only we saw afterwards how much pain you were actually in.
and also good news, they booked me again. And even though it got cancelled this year because of the lockdown situation, that booking carries on. So I am going back to Southend.
Now, just make sure that it's not in the contract that you have to jump off the stage at any point.
I'm going to make them put inflatable stuff down the front.
Yeah. Just get that written into the agreement. Let's bring everybody up to date, because there is a heritage chart that is brought about by someone I know very well, Tony Prince, because I worked on his book, and he started United DJs, which is an excellent internet radio show with a lot of the DJs that people will know from the past. We've all got together again.
Reed, Kid Jensen,
yeah,
Roscoe.
I know it's anybody who's not there isn't anybody. It's right now.
Luxembourg and beyond. It's brilliant setup. It's brilliant.
No, it's a fantastic setup, and I know that it's something that Tony had wanted to do for a long time. He'd set up the World DJ Championships,
yes.
And still runs those as far as I know. But this getting all these, he had a thing about radio shows, music radio shows that no longer had personalities on there, and he wanted to change that. So United DJs did that very, very well, and they have a chart, and they have I believe it's called the Heritage Chart.
Yes.
And right now at number 1 is Owen Paul. So tell us all about that, because it's a brand new song, and you must be really, really pleased. When I first contacted you through Lynn, I had a question here already for you that said, "What's it like being number 2?" And almost as soon as I'd done that, you'd gone to number 1 and given me a real coup. So tell us all about that, Owen.
My first number 1 in the UK ever, because Favourite Waste of Time was at number 3. I did have number 1s with Favourite Waste of Time in different countries, but not in the UK. This is the first time ever. But the chart is a brilliant thing. And the radio station, as you say, United DJs Radio, is a great idea. But this other offshoot, which is a chart that's on every Sunday, called the Heritage Chart, Dr. Neil Fox does the countdown, like the old days when he used to do the Pepsi chart and stuff. And it's on a Sunday, like it used to be. And it's on at 5 to 7. And
the ones that we used to record illegally on our cassettes.
Absolutely, it's exactly that all over again. It's a brilliant thing. And basically, what they come up with, the concept of the thing is what I really like. And then I would say so because I'm included. But basically, their argument is that if you Lee John from Imagination, or Owen Paul, or Nick Kershaw, or Travis even, or Howard Jones, Lamal, you don't suddenly stop writing or recording, or you don't suddenly become rubbish overnight. You just, you're not mainstream anymore in that regard. The charts or the television has moved on to streaming and all sorts, but you're still making records. And they came up with the idea that to qualify into the chart, you had to be an act that people knew from any decade in the past, the 60s. I know they've got guys from Pink Floyd, all sorts on this chart. Some of the guys from Status Quo have got records out and have done well. Johnny Hates Jazz, and this chart's been running now for something like 8 weeks, 2 months. And my song went in the first week at 13. It's just like the old days. We all got drowned with radio on the Sunday afternoon because we've no idea whether it's going to move up or down or right out, in fact, which can happen. Chesney Hawkes has got a track out this week, which is a new entry. And there's loads of great acts on there. And mine went up and up and up. And then, you know, you nearly sent me the message. Congratulations on number 2. Lucky you didn't.
Right.
After being in that chart for 8 weeks, boom! Number 1, Beauty of the Sun.
That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about the song. Let's push that as well, because could we what we'll do is we'll put a link in so that people can download that. So tell us a bit about that song.
Well, the song is available on all the platforms you'd expect: iTunes, Amazon, Google Play. You can stream it on Spotify as well, which I hate, but hey.
Where you make 0.0001p every time. So yeah, I know.
It's 0.06. It's something ridiculous. Yeah. Anyway, you can get it on your streaming platforms as well. I mean, Apple Music stream as well, so it still works. And it's all on those things. This song was recorded pretty much the second month after lockdown, so in April time. I already had the song written in my head, and then we recorded it over the last couple of months. So it's originated in these times, and it's a song. It's a very positive song. It's about, because everything got taken away from us, we couldn't see your loved ones and whatever. I tend to err on the side of, you know, even I'm like this when people pass and die and stuff. I treasure the time I had, not the time that I'm not going to have. This annoys my children immensely about me, because they'll say, "Daddy, did you miss me?" And I go, "Well, actually, no. The whole time I was looking forward to seeing you again. That was what I was doing the whole time." And I believe
very well put.
The song is about that, and it's about treasuring what you have, not what you don't have. That's what the song's about, and it's number 1.
So it's obviously something that the fans really want to tap into.
Yes, also because of the situation that everyone's in, it is a very positive, and now it's something like it got released at the height of summer in July. It's a bit like Favourite Waste of Time. It's not a pop record, it's much more of a country thing, but it's very summery and positive, and I like that. And that obviously, you know, if you look at the Facebook pages on the radio station, like the DJs or Mike Reed's, who's on it, and Neil Fox, it's just littered with, "Oh my God, I love this song. This makes me feel so happy and positive when I hear it," and blah, blah, blah. And I'm very, very proud that it connects like that. And that's what it's like being a writer. You want that. Yeah. Even if people hate it, you want that too, because you want a reaction. What you don't want is, that's okay. You want hate that or love that, then you know you've done something of worth. That's what I believe in anyway.
Well, that's brilliant, and we'll make sure that there's a link to it with this broadcast. But you haven't stopped there, have you? Because there's another track out today. So tell us all about that.
Every day, right? You're the first to know.
Yeah, this is another coup. You give me a lot of coups here, Owen. I'm very happy with that.
This is the cracker, right? Out this very day. We haven't even hit the go button to get it on all the platforms, but I imagine by about 6 o'clock tonight you'll get this brand new track. It's a bit of a weird version of Favourite Waste of Time, but it's just the chorus, it's just a jam, because we got in touch with obviously loads of artists, Lee John, whoever, are all sitting there at home, can't get out the same as everyone else. So I thought, they're probably the same as me. I'm going to come up with an idea, we make a jam, and then they can record their bit wherever they are, and then they'll put it all together and blah, blah, blah. So I asked Lee John, I asked Carol Decker, I asked Cheryl Baker from the Fez, I asked Matt Lucas, I asked Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols, I asked some of the guys from the Simple Minds, I asked some of the guys from Big Country, I've got Phil Cunningham, Judd Lander, I'm sure you know Judd, Gary Barnacle on saxophone, who played everything of anything on anyone's record. I asked all these people, 50 in total, and they're all on my favourite Waste of Time, the Lockdown Chorus, which is out in about...
That is magnificent, and we'll make sure that people can
and there's a video, because they all sent us the clips.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll link to that as well, because I want as many people to see that as possible. Tell me something, because one thing that has just occurred to me, you also had a bit of a campaign for people wearing your T-shirt. And I saw this photographic campaign where lots of people were holding up your T-shirt or wearing your T-shirt, and looking not quite so happy about it. So quickly tell me about that, because this is all to do with the contacts and some of the contacts that you've mentioned for the song.
Indeed, it's one of those. It's just it's because of Facebook and Twitter and things. It's just another, thing that happened randomly, but we would then utilize it and made it into a thing. So we were working on, when I was filming the Rogue Traders Watchdog program, I became part of that team on one of their episodes. And I gave the T-shirt to Matt Albright, the presenter, and he went, "Ew, what's that?" We caught that. After we'd finished the filming, I posted it on Facebook that night, and I said, "Reluctant Owen Paul merchandise salesman #1." Right? So then the next time we were somewhere else, I remember we were doing the telethon marathon thing with Sarah Cox and Michael Ball. Same thing. Gave him the T-shirt, and he went, "Oh, thanks." And I went, "Can you give me as if you don't really want it?" So that became #2. Then Carol Decker did it. That was #3.
Loads of them doing it. It was absolutely brilliant. And I think what we ought to do with this is what we'll do. We're going to put lots of links with this broadcast on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to where people can buy that T-shirt, and then encourage people to come on the Agent Fox Media website.
Yeah.
Pictures of them holding the T-shirt. So that's what we'll do. Owen, this has been it's always a real joy to talk to you. And we haven't seen each other for a while. Obviously, no one's seen each other for a while. But this has been great. And even with all the time that I've known you, you still told me a hell of a lot of stuff I haven't known about you today. So I've learned stuff as well. So thank you so much. And everybody, Owen Paul, and there'll be lots of links. There'll be lots of links underneath this broadcast for you to buy his T-shirt, buy his records, and keep in contact with him. Okay, so that's been the 8th episode of In the Fox's Den. I'm sure that you'll agree it was a really, really good episode. He's talked about football, he's talked about music, and he's still very, very much in our hearts. So till the next time, thank you.